America, 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 later for America. What has America done for me? Nothing, but made me a zombie. I don't know who I am. I try to act like somebody else. No name, no language, no culture. Got our women acting like some Aunt Jemimas, Beulahs, Sapphires. Got our men acting like sex infection, Manti Molars, Willie Betts, and some Rochesters. What has America done for me? Nothing, but made me a zombie. Took away my uncle life, gave me some groceries, some dead white man hanging from it, teaching us about Mary had a little lamb. Mary was white, the lamb was white, and what about old Snow White? Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to give her poor dog a bone. I lied. She gave the dog a steak and gave the bones to Negroes. Neck bones, pig feet, ham hocks, chitterlings, guts. Made us gut eaters, whiskey consumers, dope users, Uncle Tom niggas. That's what America done for me. Made me a robot, a Frankenstein, a puppet. What has America done for me? Nothing, but made me a zombie. Integration, segregation, dehumanization, demasculation, frustration, and complete annihilation. If you are seeking a just education, we are taught to hate ourselves, that everything white is right. We are taught to hate ourselves. Everything we learn is right. Jack and Jill is white. Dick and Jane is white. Little Bo Peep is white. Little Jack Horner is white. Little Red Riding Hood is white. History is white. Civics is white. Math is white. Spelling is white. Social studies is white. Santa Claus is white. And he coming down from a black chimney. Shut up, no wonder black people hate themselves.
I just wonder why sometimes, often black men choose white women over black women. I don't understand that.
Well, I think that's very easily answered by the fact that we still live in a world where we base images or beauty off Europeans. In other words, if America defines beauty as light skin, long hair, and blue eyes, haven't they told you what ugly is? There are still people, even in this audience, using terms like good hair. If you know what good hair is, you got to know what bad hair is. If you know what pretty eyes are, you have to know what ugly eyes are. That's dialectic. Once you know what it is, you automatically know what's not.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you.
Most of our children, just like us, get all the information we have about how you be with a mate off television.
I know how to build a business. You got to get the black people to do it to get the white people to do it. Then you got to get the black people to stop doing it, one step at a time.
It's the only medium that shows us anybody being together. Those rules have not worked for us. The white woman's liberation movement, we don't have anything to do with that. We have not been under the control of the black man for over 500 years, so what do we have to get liberated from them from? They haven't been our boss. That's the white woman and her man. They're going through that, and that's their business. We don't have any business being in that. They only introduced it to break down the civil rights movement. Civil rights movement started with the black man, the black woman, and the black child standing together, trying to plead for freedom, justice, and equality, and more benefits in the country that they had built. They threw the white woman in there with the women's liberation movement and made it a woman against man thing. That created a big separation between black men and black women, because then everybody started going for self. Then they bring the welfare system in and tell us in order to feed and clothe and house our children, we have to give up our man. You have to put the man out of the house. When the white farm wife goes to the government for subsidy for the farm, they don't tell her to get rid of the farmer. They keep that family together. But in the black community, they make it a requirement, because they want to keep endorsing into the black community that the black man is no good, and that he is not deserving of respect, he is not deserving of us letting him give us any protection or instruction, and that we are better than them.
They're complete separatists, the campuses I've visited. They don't associate with the whites. They don't eat with the whites. They advocate their own dormitories. They seem to me to be going back in time to separatism.
No,
when there was a white society and a black society.
I got to disagree with you there now.
I think it's wrong for blacks to eat with blacks and whites to eat with whites.
Well, wait a minute.
We've been fighting forever to get together.
Why can't I know about me if you know about yourself? I know more about you than you do about me. You know nothing about me.
That's probably true, Jimmy, but
I have to know that. Do you call yourself a man knowing that I pay taxes same as you, stay right here and use my sweat and blood to help build this country, and I got to be a second or third class citizen? No. Do you call it a man?
What would you say? You ought to be as good as me and do what
ought to be? I know I'm good as you. What do you mean ought to be?
But the condition of the
condition.
You haven't had a fair crack at it.
Well, how long it take, man? I'm 36 years old.
Why are you buying third-rate junk from third-rate people thinking you can't make it? Why don't you at least make a safety pin to hold your child's diaper together?
Teach.
Who has programmed your mind into thinking you can't make a car? The first man that made a car that had never seen one previously.
Teach.
The Japanese bought cars, bought locomotives, broke them down and studied them, and had a Japanese technician produce each piece, put it together, and had a much better train than the one they copied from. All knowledge in the world belongs to everybody in the world.
Yes.
Who has programmed our mind in assuming that we cannot run a nation and run it well? The main thing imperialism did, slavery and imperialism.
You're in a prison system called racism. Racism is the dominant political and religious force on the planet, and it's designed to do harm to people of color. That's what it's for. And if you really get serious about really trying to do anything to replace the system of racism with the system of justice, and it appears to be effective, you can expect to be killed. Why? Because we're in a war, and we're prisoners of war. If you try to dismantle that prison, and you are appearing to be effective in doing so, you can expect to be killed, like in any war. We're in a war. That's what racism is. Racism is war.
Well, I mean, we've gotten some rights and everything. We've been able to vote. Why can't you?
What are you going to get from voting? Okay, everybody got their right.
You can elect somebody to represent you.
Listen.
If you don't use that right to vote, then you're not going to have anybody to represent you.
Everybody, hold it, hold it. Everybody that they got set up in office are Uncle Toms and puppets being pulled on the strings, okay? These David Dinkins, Jesse Jackson, Clarence Thomas, all of these people. I still got drugs in my neighborhood. My people still poor, still living in the ghetto, still living in the slums. These are black people that are put up, the white man put them up to pacify. See, you got a black mayor. See, you got a black police commissioner. But we could see through that.
Black people are not racist. We have never been. I listened to you all the way out. I gave you respect. We have never been racist. White people are outright wickedly racist. Right. Black people have never robbed you of your name. Black people did not put you in slavery. Black people did not take your religion, your culture, your God, your folkways, your mores, and your norms from you, bring you from a distant land and put you in slavery 400 years in another country. Black people never did that to you. But when you, with your foot on the black man and black woman's neck, find them now crying out and pointing out how you got your foot on their neck and asking you to get your foot off of their neck, now you call us racist. We are only giving you the history of what you have done and what you are still doing to us.
And I'm going to say it, farming is a white man's game. And the top 10 banks in the United States, they're guilty by not lending money to black farmers the way that they lend it to white farmers.
That's true. Between 1910 and 1997, black farmers lost about 90% of the land that they owned, whereas white farmers lost about 2%. And no, it wasn't because white farmers were 88% better at farming. Internal studies at the USDA found that the USDA authorities had routinely discriminated against African American farmers.
The government, who done treated us worse than the dirt on the ground we're sitting on, investigated this up in my local county office. It took 387 days to process a black farmer's loan application.
387 days?
387 days on average.
So you miss a whole year planting.
There you go.
And how long does it take to process a white farmer?
30 days.
30?
Less than 30 days. That's where the problem is. And if I can't get it there, I can't get it anywhere.
That's it. That's it.
That's the United States Department of Agriculture, the last plantation. And they haven't changed, even after the national lawsuit.
In 1997, Timothy Pigford and 400 other African-American farmers sued the USDA for systemic discrimination against black farmers. The farmers won, but the payout took 11 years and required ongoing litigation.
It was merely an apology and an acknowledgement of guilt by the United States Department of Agriculture.
Sometimes it seemed to me been preaching hate to meet hate.
I don't advocate any kind of hate.
But there's a lot of talk that sounds very much like it.
No, I think that the guilt complex of the American white man is so profound until when you begin to analyze the real condition of the black man in America, instead of the American white man eliminating the causes that create that condition, he tries to cover it up by accusing his accusers of teaching hate. But actually, they're just exposing him for being responsible for what exists.
Well, that's something of an argument, but I've heard speeches made by some of the people of your group. I think I've heard you make speeches. It seemed to me that you were advocating, well, I would have to describe, I think, as violence to meet the serious injuries that have been done your people, with which I totally agree.
I don't call that violence. I don't in any way encourage black people to go out and initiate acts of aggression in.
But white people have engaged in a violent activity. And that's why they are scared that we are going to pay revenge in a violent manner. So then they show us, artificial, pretentious tears that they are scared. They are not. They are refusing to surrender the land, and their state of mind, because they are always resolving things through violence. The ownership of land in South Africa is a reserve for white people. And once you tamper with it, you are tampering with white privilege. And no one dares touch his white privilege. That's what they are worried about. They are worried about whiteness. Because whiteness is ownership of strategic means of production in the economy.
Let's talk about the basic issue of politics. The basic issue of politics is power. If you have power over me, you're going to abuse it. If I have no power to resist you, then I'm going to be abused. And I don't care what's in your heart. I don't want to know what's in your heart half the time. I want to know whether there's a weapon in your hand and whether I have the means to defend myself against it. Could be economic, could be social, could be political, could be physical, but I've got to be able to defend myself because I can't trust you. And that's an American statement. That is not a statement of some
in the human soul to be found anywhere?
That's not the point. The point is that if you give people power over you and you can't defend yourself against them, our founders said they will abuse you, and the world, if I don't mind saying so, from a black person's point of view, I don't have to prove to you that somebody's out to get me. There are 400 years of history in this country that people are out to get me, and they got me more than half the time. I don't have to prove that to anybody.
And I'm getting tired of this dumbass question, why everything got to be black? For when you look in the mirror, Negro, what else can it be for you? For white folks, it's very clear. Everything got to be white. Even for black folks, red folks, yellow folks, and everybody else. We're the only fools in the world that ask such a question. Why everything got to be black? Well, look at yourself in the mirror and you'll find out why. And if that don't convince you, if you don't convince yourself that you look like Tom Selleck or somebody, because we can't do that, you know. Be looking so black and pretty, but think we're looking like something Clark Gable or something. And if that don't convince you, just the world of reality that you step into when you step out your door. Those realities bring it right down front. Why it's got to be black.
That Africans were here before the Europeans. So what do you do with the heads in Mexico that you find at San Lorenzo, at Tres Zapotes? What do you do with those? All right? You ignore them. What do you do with Columbus's diary that says the Africans know a way to the west, but it goes around the doldrums, we would never survive? What do you do with that? You ignore it. What do you do with Balboa's diary that says, we came upon this African village in the Isthmus? How did these Africans get here? What do you do with that? You ignore it. Why? To preserve the myth that the Europeans were here first.
Okay, I've been listening in this corner right here, and I've heard a whole lot of negative things from the white people here. When you were trying to explain yourself, the white people don't want to hear you explain yourself. They drown you out. They start already trying to drown you out and talk over you. There's a certain amount of white arrogance here, and they don't want to listen to what black people are saying. They don't understand because they don't want to understand. I've heard a woman here say, go back to Africa. Somebody said, we have a black holiday. What does that mean?
To those arrogant persons, you know, when you tell us, go back, please remember where you came from. And when you want to relegate somebody to a specific place, just remember what your origin is in this world. Please, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I want you to understand that you, wherever you are on the earth, you're not a native anywhere. You came there and took it from the native people who are there. So please don't talk about going back, because if others talk to you about that, where would you go?
Do you believe that the European was that powerful? Was that powerful? To bring all these Africans over here?
The Europeans didn't do that.
Yeah.
The Europeans didn't do it, number one. The Europeans, only 5% of the slaves in this country from Africa.
Yeah.
Only 5% of the Africans were slaves in this country. 5%. And 95% were of free will people.
Did you know that in America there were over 300 recorded armed resistance movements? Yes. From the brave warriors of the Bacon Rebellion, the Stono Rebellion, Nat Turner, to the ingenious plots of Denmark Vesey and Gabriel Prosser. We're going to look at one of the largest movements, the Louisiana Uprising of 1811, and how they came very, very close in creating a black republic, a land of freedom, true democracy, and protection from European oppression.
Some just refuse to die. And so we would struggle and fight. We would continue to use our language when they weren't looking. We would continue to remember our customs. I'm an African. I'm a God. I'm a Shanti. I know who I am. They won't take me from me. Some of our people say, you will not take my identity. In fact, proof would just say, I'd rather die and have no respect and be a slave and a servant to you.
The Olympics came out of Africa. It came out of the Sed Festival in Africa, where the leader had to prove his ability to rule physically, mentally, and spiritually. And then out of this, what's interesting, that when we deal with sports, sports came out of military training. In the early world, that's how sports came into existence. When you were training to become physically fit to be able to be in the military, that, like for instance, a shot put, right? The shot put was when you was throwing rocks at people. The discus was when you were tossing different types of elliptical objects at people. Then you had the bow and arrow. Then you had running. You had swimming. Those are all military arts that became sports in Africa. Africans brought it into the Mediterranean basin. Greeks got a hold of it, brought it down a certain level, and that became the Olympics.
History is a clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells of people where they have been and what they have been, where they are and what they are. Most important, history tells a people where they still must go and what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child.
A lot of people could say the black community, as well as, you know, specifically the Nation of Islam, they blame white supremacy when we know that those are truly issues. Right. Even though if you truly believe that your inner king and the power that we truly do possess is greater than them, then why do we even bring them up?
When it comes to that question, I'm going to tell you, we don't blame the white man. We blame each other. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has stated, you refuse to do things for yourself. You literally have the ability to access wealth, to access education, whatever you need, businesses, etc. Now, is there a system that is still in place to make it difficult for you to access it easily? Yes, absolutely correct. But is it impossible? No, it is not impossible. It's not all white people. They're not bad. Not all of them. When I say bad, I'm saying there are some white people who are doing their best to get away from what their ancestors put together. We need to pool our resources, come together so that we can do something for ourselves.
Create our own.
That's it. That's all we do. We're not blaming y'all no more. But if you come step over here, we're going to, you know, bust you in your face. And you try to stop us from building our own.
Say blacks hate blacks. It's not just a myth. Why is it we do not have the same respect for members of our race as we do for some other race, especially the white race? And that we were told, quite to the contrary, that we were from a land of savages, of cannibals. And except by the grace of God and the white man, we would have been a lost people. So we should be on our knees forever praying and thanking God that we were brought, even in slavery, to this land to escape the horrors of Africa. And this was brought in and drilled into us generation after generation.
I think it is very arrogant to put this on the screen and for you and for others to attempt to tell me, one of the Holocaust victims of the African Holocaust, displaced in the death and decadence of the diaspora of the Western world after having been robbed and raped and murdered, to tell me how to hurt. These are strong words that you put on the screen, but you cannot tell the aggrieved and the victim. As I was talking to Brother Malik Zulu Shabazz, the young student warrior from Howard University, and we were going over this, and we said, how do they expect to tell we who have suffered so much how we should speak? When you're hurt, you'll say faggot, you'll say cracker, but you don't want to give me time to say where these terms came from and how they apply to your people here in America.
Well, Dr. Africa, since African Americans are at the top of the list for most diseases, including cancer, can we talk a little bit about today about our African heritage and talk about how did we eat before slavery?
Well, before slavery and colonialism, we had a balanced diet. We ate green things in the morning, green food. We ate starches and greens and proteins. But now we're on to a diet that's strictly, with the major content of it is starch. And the starch is in the form of cereals or pancakes or pizza or cake, candy, all that starch. And so we're on a highly starch-centered diet. And eating that large amount of starch causes bone deformities, infertility, the teeth shift in the jaw, and people have to wear braces, causes hair loss.
So they basically took away my life and my livelihood.
A Tulsa woman is suing the city's code enforcement officers after she says they cut down her garden with no cause. News on 6 crime reporter Lori Fulbright has that story new at 6. Lori?
Well, Terry, Denise Morrison says she has more than 100 plant varieties in her front and backyards and says every one of them is edible and has a purpose. She knows which ones will treat arthritis, which ones will make your food spicy, which ones keep mosquitoes away and treat bug bites, but she says none of that mattered to the city inspectors.
These are pictures of Denise Morrison's front and backyards last August, filled with flowers in bloom, lemons, stevia, garlic chives, grapes, strawberries, apple mint, spearmint, peppermint, an apple tree, walnut tree, pecan trees, and much more. She got a letter from the city saying there had been a complaint about her yard. She says she took these pictures to meet with city inspectors, but says they wouldn't listen. So she invited them out so they could point out to her the problem areas.
Everything needs to go.
Those are my niggas. I know my niggas. Give them some chicken. Toss a celebrity in front of them. Tell them I'm going to take it first. Get the trust and gain the trust of their 15 million followers. We'll get the majority of them. We always do. A few of them, we'll just call them anti-vaxxers. We'll call them this. We'll call them that.
I'd like to say that I am a registered nurse
I took the COVID vaccine to protect patients and my fellow co-workers. I took it a week and a half ago. It'll be 2 weeks this coming Tuesday. I have had tremors for the last 3 days. I have been to 4 ERs and have been discharged, stating that I need to follow up with neurology. I've contacted 2 neurologists. One cannot even see me until after March or late March. The other one said that they will not see me at all. I'm making this video so that people are aware of the possibilities of reactions to the vaccine. I'm not making this video so that you won't take the vaccine. As a nurse, I strongly believe in vaccines, but I do feel that everyone should be made aware that this is a possibility.
Nigerian car mechanic Lateef Adetoye is collecting leaves from his yard for his own coronavirus remedy. He's been interested in herbal treatments since he was a child, but his focus, like that of many across Africa, was renewed after Madagascar's president announced a plant-based COVID-19 cure in April. Adetoye's concoction combines ginger, lemons and neem leaves. He says the ingredients can fight malaria, and as COVID-19 has similar symptoms, he believes it will cure the respiratory disease 100%.
Let's try our home best. So when we try our home best, we know whether our home best can work for us. We don't need to go and meet anybody. At least God give us all this leaf, all this root to cure ourselves.
The Madagascan remedy, COVID Organics, is also based on a plant with anti-malarial properties, Artemisia annua, also known as sweet wormwood. The World Health Organization has warned that COVID Organics' effectiveness is unproven, and that people who drink the tonic may feel immune and engage in risky behavior. But that didn't stop countries across the continent from placing orders and receiving thousands of bottles free of charge. Businesses already trading in Artemisia have also experienced a sudden surge in orders. Belgian agronomist Pierre Van Dam manages the production of Artemisia-based pills and tea bags under the Lion Vert label in Senegal. He says sales increased at the start of the pandemic, but mostly just for wealthy Senegalese and expats. Then Madagascar's André Rajoelina announced COVID Organics.
There was a big boom. Suddenly we were in over our heads. We went from producing 3,000 to 4,000 packets a month to 2,000 packets a day, and we're still not managing to satisfy the demand.
But like the WHO, Van Dam warns against promoting a cure without scientific proof. He says they are in the process of gathering funds with the help of artists and athletes to finance a clinical study approved by the WHO to show that Artemisia is a valuable tool in the fight.
The weaponization of this phrase that dates back to 1967. So if you haven't seen this document, now you're going to learn exactly when this phrase conspiracy theorists became weaponized to shut down anyone who would question our dear centralized government.
Like I read, by 1984, the government will have tracking devices on all of us. And after that, they're going to jam electrodes in our brains so they can read our memories.
Our play should point out, as applicable, that critics are wedded to the theories they've adopted before the evidence was in. They're politically interested, they're financially interested, they have hasty, inaccurate research, and they're infatuated with their own theories as a way to discredit people.
If the U.S. government decides to stick a tracking device up your ass, you say thank you.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA?
We do have people who submit pieces to...
Facebook announcing 2 voice-controlled video calling devices to compete with the smart home devices from Amazon, Google, and Apple. These devices are called the Portal and the Portal Plus. They'll focus on video calling with a smart camera that follows you as you move around the room, tapping into the 400 million people who use Facebook's Messenger voice and video chat every month. This is part of Facebook's push to connect its users to their friends and family. Now, the Portal has a 10-inch screen and will cost $200, while the Portal Plus has a 15.6-inch screen and is priced at $350. You can order them now, and they'll ship early next month. Now, besides video calls, the devices can stream music from Spotify, Pandora, and Amazon, and video from Facebook Watch, but they are not partnered with the likes of YouTube, Apple Music, or Netflix, at least not at launch. The devices are equipped with Amazon's Alexa voice assistant software, so consumers can ask the device for the weather or to control smart home devices, among other things. And Amazon will be Facebook's biggest.
Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade to which thousands came. And Bernays decided to stage an event there. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes under their clothes. Then they should join the parade, and at a given signal from him, they were to light up the cigarettes dramatically. Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
He knew this would be an outcry, and he knew that all of the photographers would be there to capture this moment. And so he was ready with a phrase, which was torches of freedom. And so here you have a symbol, women, young women, debutantes, smoking a cigarette in public with a phrase that means anybody who believes in this kind of equality pretty much has to support them in the ensuing debate about this, because torches of...
Mr. President, I take the opportunity of wishing the East European cities well in the coming of the very early skiing season, and snow and ice that's come there, what of course is indicative of the fact that, as independent science has now confirmed, that the globe is actually cooling and has been cooling since 2002, broadly flat since 1998. We're all talking about something here which isn't happening. I've heard time and time again members here talk of CO2 as a pollutant. A pollutant is a life-giving natural gas. It gives me the impression that some of our members haven't had the benefit of a formal education. Isn't this really just about the state being able to get its hand in ordinary people's trouser pocket to steal yet more tax from them? Isn't this all about political control? Isn't all this about politics and big business? The whole thing's a sham. This bogus hypothesis, this ridiculous nonsense that man-made CO2 is causing global warming. Enough, please, before we damage irrevocably the global economy.
We are informed as to the destructive capabilities of nuclear weapons. But when the issue of environmental modification techniques is raised, public opinion is totally unaware that these weapon systems actually exist. They don't know that they exist. Okay, and they're not being discussed. They're not being discussed in the universities. They're not being discussed by the media, and the extent to which they can actually undermine human life on planet Earth is not addressed. We now have HAARP, and HAARP has the capabilities of modifying selectively weather patterns in different parts of the world, floods, hurricanes, earthquakes.
Do you have a plan of how we could make civilization better, more humane?
Yes,
Okay.
education. Quite simply, read and study and turn off the television, turn off all the silly nonsense of government, and it's just incredible nonsense. And start educating yourself. The United States federal government is a privately owned company. It's a corporation.
The whole government.
Of course, it's a private. It's like General Motors, Ford Motor Company, Sears. It's a privately owned. But see, most people don't understand. The United States government is a corporation. It is a privately owned company.
Who owns it?
Oh, well, that's different. Now you're getting
Now I'm asking the right
now you're asking the right question.
You can be a U.S. citizen or you can be an American, but you can't be both. It's impossible. You can be a U.S. citizen or you can be an American, but you can't be both. It's impossible. Anyone who claims to be a citizen of the United States, under legal definition of the United States, is pledging their allegiance to Washington, D.C. or the District of Columbia. They are not Americans. You can be a U.S. citizen or you can be an American, but you can't be both. It's impossible.
One of the things about slavery is the slaves weren't freed. They were never freed. When the 14th Amendment or 13th Amendment, I can't remember which one, actually made everybody a slave. If you're a citizen of a country, you're a slave. That's what a citizen is. So they literally extended the slavery to everybody and made it an open prison. And that's where everybody in the world lives now. We're slaves to very powerful masters. We don't see bars.
No.
Yeah? The bars are the borders of the country. Right? You have to use a pass to get out, and they'll let you out if you show them your pass.
And I wouldn't presume to trace the lines of authority within the Catholic Church, how they get their information, but they do. And we've always said, you know, in an admiring way, that the Jesuits formed the greatest intelligence service in the world, always have. The Jesuits formed the greatest intelligence service in the world, always have.
What we're going to do is just read the Jesuit oath, okay? So have you follow along. It says,
I furthermore promise and declare that I will,
when opportunity present, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics.
I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive.
Rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women in order to annihilate forever their terrible race.
I put the key in the door, it was open, so it did like that.
Shanae Porter says when she arrived home at her Briar Creek apartment Tuesday morning, she walked into a nightmare.
What's up, girl? Was it you?
Yeah, that's my apartment.
Two men she did not know lounging in her home, eating her food, wearing her ex-boyfriend's clothes. She says one of them even took a shower. A neighbor's doorbell cam shows two strange men the night before twisting doorknobs in the breezeway. Shanae says her door was locked, but somehow they got in. And when Shanae came home, the young mom was terrified.
I just looked at him and I said, "Who are you?" And he started coming towards me, and I hurried up and closed the door.
I didn't know what to think, what to say. I was so speechless. I never seen anything like this before.
Emotions took a new turn when Raleigh police respond to Shanae's call to 911. Officers question the intruders. Shanae and her neighbors angered and confused on what they see as a lack of urgency from police. The suspects in her apartment were both white. Shanae calls it a double standard.
If I was a white woman and I called and said it was two black intruders in my house, I feel like they would have had them out my house immediately.
Do you know your apartment number? Yeah, I'm Shady. This is your number. I want you to tell me what the apartment number is.
Man, rush them now.
Are they still sitting?
They're in my house. She's a victim, and I want to see it treated like a victim situation. There is a foreign man in her home.
That's why we have him detained in there. You have to understand, there's actually two of them in there.
Get them detained outside. You can be detained outside.
At this point in time, what's safest for us and every single person out there is to deal with them in that situation, detain them, and then bring them out afterwards.
I called you for help and you go talk to them like there's, you know, like good people, like they just broke into my house. I don't even feel safe with calling the police anymore because it's like you never know.
Colonizer, spread the reach of your empire. Gunpowder, guns of power, massacre with cannon fire, spilling blood, then sip the cup and eat the bread, the purifier, cleanse your sins and kill again in the name of your Messiah.
But you went along with it, and the people say, well, you know, it's Christmas. Don't you like to have fun? You want to stop the children from having fun? What kind of people are you? But what are you teaching the children? You are using the name of Jesus, using the name of Isa alayhi salam, and you are using a figure who historically is the devil. The devil himself, wal-iyadu billah. They are using his figure, and he has now taken over the Christmas season. Christmas now to most people means materialism. You have to buy presents for your cousins and your friends, and you got to buy about 34 presents. And you find that most American people are in debt for 6 months after Christmas. Now, where is Jesus? You get drunk, you fight, you lose all your money, the stores raise their prices.
Colonizer,
spread disease like dragon fire, plunder, pillage every village, gold your God and greed your sire, gold digging, taking children, make them slaves, working miners, raping women, spreading seed, hate and pain, the fertilizer, colonizer, come and bearing gifts from your king, not sense of frankincense and myrrh, no, death and disease. You didn't come with gold, but you came with your greed, gazing on the city with eyes shaded green, colonizer. You think that by planting a flag makes the land yours like cattle with brands. You're the bully of the world with a gun in your hand, taking people's things just because you can, colonizer. You think only your faith is right, and those who don't believe are devils in sight. So if you kill them, rape them, slave them, then you're justified, because dark heathens aren't human. Your God is white, colonizer. You get what you want by all means. You're the mass murderer, killing millions with ease, gifting incubated blankets with deadly disease.
If we don't give the planet and the people a vision, they don't have shit. And the metaphysics is what keeps you motivated to examine yourself. See, the reason why they debunk metaphysics is because when you got a religion up against metaphysics, the religion loses. Because metaphysics gets you to analyze God without the name they give you to say is God. And once you say God is Allah or Jesus, you're already using somebody else's paradigm structure of God. So how the hell are you going to know God personally? You can't call God Jesus and say you know him personally, because that ain't the name you're supposed to give to it. When you go inside of yourself and you find out the God self, you name God then. Because then you have a real personal experience with it.
Ain't no physical UFOs coming, and ain't no aliens coming to save you. Because the alien is yourself. The original word alien is in the Kabbalah, it's in the Gnostic scripture, and it's talking about your soul that is dormant on the inside, that is alien from you, because you have forgotten your true nature and your true self, which is the hidden side of you, because you're identifying with the physical you, which is not the real you. You are not local, you are someplace else. You are somewhere in the deepest part of the universe, which is inside your body, which is 1,000 miles away from what you think and you really are, because you are not identified with the physical body. Your ancient soul, which has been trapped in the body, is now saying, we want out. It ain't about no unity or you getting back and all this kind of thing here, because before you were man, you were